is for you. You can't wear it on your chest, but you can feel it in your heart. And I hope it brings you comfort when this world grows dark. Let it echo through the madness, let the message pull you through. This is our medal of honor to you.
And now, Armed Forces Weekly with Donna Lyons on TSPN.
Welcome to Armed Forces Weekly. I'm Donna Lyons. The Greatest Generation has many memorable stories, some well known and some untold. A story unknown to many is that of the USS Intrepid, a veteran aircraft carrier that saw service from World War II to Vietnam, an awesome warship that will forever be memorialized. Less obvious is what it has taken to create and maintain this impressive collection, along with a number of other projects that represent the life's work of Zachary Fisher and the Fisher family. I'm going to tell you that unbelievable story when we return from a commercial break.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
Welcome back. Zachary Fisher had a lifelong passion for the armed services. He often referred to the men and women in uniform as our nation's greatest treasure. He spent his life not only honoring them as a humanitarian, but to ensure their sacrifices on the battlefield did not take a larger toll once they returned home. Inspired to join the military by the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Fisher was prohibited from enlisting due to severe leg injuries. Not to be deterred, he set about finding an alternative route to making an impact in the war effort. Fisher's wife, Elizabeth, was equally committed to the troops before they met. Elizabeth volunteered her time with the USO during World War II, performing as a member of the famous Ziegfeld Follies and visiting wounded military personnel at their bedsides. Together, their concern and generosity to benefit American troops seemed to know no bounds. Long before the formal creation of the multiple foundations that would be their legacy, the Fishers wrote anonymous checks to the families of military members killed in action at a time when the federal death benefits for fallen troops was extraordinarily low. It was this dedication to honoring our troops that would eventually grow into the Intrepid family of foundations. The Intrepid was commissioned in 1943, and her storied battle career contributed to several pivotal sea battles in the Pacific Theater of Operations. Decommissioned shortly after World War II, she was updated and returned to service again in the early 1950s. In this second life, she served in the North Atlantic and 3 tours in Vietnam. But in '74, the Navy finally decommissioned her for the last time. She sat waiting to be sent to the scrapyard. The Fishers were inspired by Intrepid and the valor and sacrifice of the men who served aboard her decks. They joined a successful effort to save Intrepid from scrapping, and in '78 created the Intrepid Museum Foundation, raising the money to bring her to New York. Overhauled once more, Intrepid was transformed into a museum that would celebrate her and her gallant crew's service to the nation and inspire future generations to follow that path. In 1982, the Intrepid Museum welcomed its first visitors and held the title of the world's largest naval museum. As an historic landmark, its motto and mission are to honor, educate, and inspire. The creation and opening of the Intrepid Museum was only the start of the Fisher family's philanthropic endeavors. Fisher truly understood the role of service to the nation and made similar donations to families of New York firefighters who lost their lives in the line of duty. The Fishers Armed Services Foundation also provides scholarship funds to active and former service members and their families. And, as the story is told, sometime in the late 1980s, the wife of the Chief of Naval Operations was returning to her car one evening after visiting patients at the Naval Medical Center when she came upon a sailor sleeping in his car. Asking if he needed assistance, she was surprised to hear that the sailor's wife was hospitalized and he had nowhere and no means to stay in more comfortable quarters. He explained he was sleeping in his car simply to be close to her. Upon hearing this story, Fisher was spurred to action and the Fisher House Foundation was born. Its mission would be to construct comfort homes on the grounds of military and Veterans Affairs hospitals and provide free temporary lodging for the families of service members. The first house opened at the Naval Medical Center in 1991. 20 years later, the Fisher House experience offers families more than just a place to sleep. It is an emotional and spiritual support structure for the families who stay there. The foundation also runs the Hero Miles program, where air travelers can donate unused frequent flyer miles to help military families defray travel expenses. In addition to the Fisher House Foundation, the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund is a trailblazer in assisting the men and women of the armed forces and their families, providing close to $120 million in support. As with Fisher House, these efforts are funded entirely with private donations. Hundreds of thousands of individuals have contributed to the IFHF over the years. This organization has redirected its focus towards supporting those soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard severely injured in combat, specifically through the construction of state-of-the-art diagnosis and treatment centers. The Center for the Intrepid, which opened in 2007, and the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, which followed in 2010, each costing approximately $55 million to build. They are fitted with cutting-edge technology to speed the diagnosis and treatment of men and women returning from the field of battle. Fisher also went out of his way to support other charitable organizations that benefited U.S. troops. He was often recognized for his service, receiving many awards, but his most cherished was when Clinton signed a public law conferring upon Mr. Fisher the status of an honorary veteran in the U.S. Armed Forces. Fisher's legacy still lives on. His marble headstone speaks volumes with just 3 words: builder, philanthropist, patriot. But it doesn't end there. With the government shutdown, the Fisher family has done it again. After families of fallen U.S. military personnel were denied benefits due to the government shutdown, the Fisher House Foundation has stepped forward to cover travel and funeral costs to help families receive the remains of their loved ones who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. The Pentagon typically pays out $100,000 within 3 days of a soldier's death, but the shutdown means there is no authority now to pay the money. Ken Fisher, CEO of Fisher House Foundation, said in a statement recently, "For the last 20 years, Fisher House has been there to support our military families in their time of greatest need. We are now stepping up to honor the sacrifices that have been made to repay a debt that is truly unpayable. After losing a loved one in service to our nation, these families should not have to endure more pain as the result of a political squabbling." If there is one good thing out of all this dysfunction and gridlock rampant in Washington, D.C., it's the show of strength within family organizations like the Fishers and the American people that they are willing to step up and continue to move this great country forward. If you have not served in the military, service to our nation may be difficult to understand. Serving does take a special breed. The service goes unnoticed daily, especially with law enforcement officers, firemen, teachers, and emergency service providers who provide what we cannot live without: security, safety, education, and support. The Fishers took their own path to service, demonstrating a commitment and dedication through funding and personal support that has touched the lives of many. To all who have served, continue to serve, and those who are missing in action, prisoners of war, and those who made the ultimate sacrifice, God bless you. You are never forgotten. We'll be right back after the commercial break.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.